morning, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hopefully a better weekend than the stock market is having today. Yikes. Gonna get into a lot of sports today. We're gonna discuss Simone Biles in about 10 to 15 minutes, what her continued dominance. She just had her last event today, won silver. Congrats to her. Congrats to all of our Team USA athletes who are right now leading the Olympics in gold medals and, of course, being American excellence that we do. Leading in overall medals. Talk about Simone in 10 to 12 minutes, what her dominance should teach us about the power of the mind. That in 10 to 12 minutes. Also going to get into the Steelers quarterback battle. Obviously, I'm a big Steelers fan, and it seems the tide has kind of turned to one quarterback in particular who's kind of leading that quarterback battle to be that number one guy in Pittsburgh. Discuss that in about 30 minutes or so. Skip Bayless leaving FS1. Discuss that. Very excited to talk about that. It's been a very turbulent last year for Skip and for everybody involved with Undisputed. Discuss that, and as of course why Team USA is going to not only win the gold medal but cruise to that gold medal on Saturday. You can book it. It is a foregone conclusion. Knock on wood, everybody stays healthy. They're going to cruise to the gold medal. That toward the end of the show. But first, when it comes to dynasties, and particularly when you're talking about a dynasty that's trying to repeat a championship season, oftentimes there are two things that halt a dynasty or end a dynasty. They're both pretty simple. Injuries, which are mostly out of your control, and ego, which is mostly in your control. Injuries, ego. That tends to be what ends dynasties. Ego ended the Kobe Shaq Lakers. Injuries ended the dominant Golden State Warriors when Kevin Durant was there. Also a little bit of ego, due to obviously Kevin Durant leaving in the summer of 2019. Ego got in the way of the Patriots dynasty. Brady, Belichick, a tug of war. Eventually Brady left, showed that it was him who was driving that dynasty, not Bill. There's a lot of factors going into that. Injuries and ego. When it comes to repeating, though, there's three factors that hold a team back from going back-to-back, or in the case of a team I'm about to talk about, three-peat. The first two I've already mentioned, injuries, ego. And the third one is pretty simple, complacency. You've won before, you've accomplished what you need to accomplish, you made a lot of money, and the motivation simply is not the same now than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe earlier in your career. Complacency. It's the very reason that it's easy to be Billy Ray Cyrus and have a one-hit wonder. It's a lot harder to be Taylor Swift, a boyfriend of a Kansas City Chiefs player, girlfriend of a Kansas City Chiefs player, and have sustained excellence over the course of 20 years, essentially. Throughout last week, and I don't make my NFL season predictions until day after or on Labor Day, day after Labor Day, something like that. On the show, I do a show every year with Ryan Flowers. Shout out to Ryan, Clutch Sports Talk, does a great job here at the Grid Network, and I do a show with him detailing my NFL predictions for the season that I hold myself to. But I was thinking about them last week. Division winners, maybe some MVP contenders, Rookie of the Year, all this, all that. I talked about Caleb Williams last week, but most importantly, who wins the Super Bowl? That's what we all tune in to see throughout the course of an NFL season. And when I was thinking about the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm like, I think they got better in the offseason. They already have Mahomes. Travis Kelce is aging, but is still a very productive player. Rashee Rice, we'll see what happens in terms of off-field punishment. But they add Xavier Worthy, who I'm kind of skeptical about, but I trust Andy Reid. We'll see what he can do with that kid. They add Hollywood Brown. The defense is still awesome. They just re-signed Harrison Butker today, the best clutch playoff kicker that we have in the game today. They're pretty much set. But they won back-to-back. And there's a reason no team in the history of the Super Bowl has ever three-peated. And complacency can sometimes come into the picture. Well, here's the thing. When it comes to injuries with Kansas City, they're on equal footing with the other 31 teams in the NFL. Again, a lot of that is just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time when it comes to football injuries. It's a violent sport. Ego, well, I don't know. Mahomes and Kelce seem to be like best friends, almost like brothers to a certain degree. Andy Reid, the players love him. What player doesn't love Andy Reid? And I mean, what was the biggest quote-unquote locker room issue with the Chiefs? The fact that their kicker made a controversial commencement speech. I think the locker room's going to be fine in Kansas City. But complacency is the one I was worried about as somebody who was leaning towards taking the Chiefs to three-peat, but now I'm a little skeptical of it. Oh boy, the players just gave Patrick Mahomes a lot of momentum, and therefore the Kansas City Chiefs in that same ballpark. So the NFL does their top 100 list, and every time they do it, there's always some very questionable candidates like, why was that guy there? He's too high. He's too low. How's that guy even on the list? How did that guy not get in the top 10? And oftentimes we see the list and it looks a little odd. This year's list was an abomination, if we're going to be completely honest. Patrick Mahomes, and we'll show you his accomplishments. Not like we need to relitigate how great Patrick Mahomes is, but was ranked the fourth best quarterback in the National Football League and the second best quarterback. Fourth best player, second best quarterback in the National Football League. Mahomes 4, McCaffrey 3, Lamar Jackson 2, and ironically, a guy who used to play with Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, who's phenomenal, by the way, as the best player in the National Football League. And I think it's a little odd. It's strange to me. Then we consider the fact that Patrick Mahomes has had 2 seasons post Tyreek Hill. He's been pretty good. All stats provided by our friends at StatMeets. All graphics provided by my man Alfred Parso Jr. Can we put this up here? What Mahomes has done since Tyreek Hill got traded in 2022? He's been phenomenal. He leads the NFL in passing yards, passing touchdowns, 6th in completion percentage, 5th in passer rating, 4th in record. He was the 2022 league MVP. He's undefeated in the playoffs, 7-0, 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. I'd say it's hard to do much better than that. And I was thinking about this too. That, listen, there's a flaw in how the NFL goes about getting the players' opinions. I don't know why they approach it the way they do. GQ put up a good article a couple of weeks ago talking about how the polling process happens like during the season, like between like Thanksgiving and New Year's, the last month of the regular season, which I think is a really flawed way to look at it. I think they need to go like, say around draft time, free agency, around that time, then poll the players. Don't go during the season. Some of these players are more focused on their next game, watching film, getting as healthy as possible as you can, at least in November, December, January, family. They're not really worried about, who's the best player in the league. These guys are busy during the season. So in that regard, it's a flawed system. But we could show you what Patrick Mahomes does, and he has, listen, I've said since February, I think he's the second greatest quarterback of all time already, just when you look at his accomplishments. We can show you the list, and I put this up after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Do we have the list here? There you go. There's Mahomes in the regular season. There's Mahomes in the postseason. Mahomes is an awesome regular season quarterback. He's even better in the playoffs. We can also look at some of these other stats with Patrick. In his playoff career, he has the 3rd most wins, best win percentage, most yards per game, best touchdown to interception ratio, number 1 in passer rating, number 1 in completion percentage. So that'll work. We then move to what Mahomes does as it pertains to being a comeback quarterback. Mahomes, when trailing by 10 or more in the regular season and the playoffs, is 17-14, over 500. Every other quarterback in the history of the game under 500. We could show you what he does in the postseason. We can show you what Patrick Mahomes does in the postseason in regards to comebacks. Down 10 or more in the playoffs. Mahomes is 5-2. Every other quarterback in NFL history down 10 or more in the playoffs is 8-55. They win 13% of their games. Patrick wins 71% of his games, which is ridiculous. We can look at the postseason, compare him to the greatest quarterback ever, Tom Brady, trailing by 7 or more in the playoffs. Mahomes, 9-2. Brady, 10-11. Everybody else, well under 500. And finally, in Super Bowls, put this stat up. Mahomes is 3-1 when trailing by 10 or more in the Super Bowl. Brady's 2-1 when trailing by 10 or more in the Super Bowl. Everybody else, 2-47. So in other words, Mahomes, as I talked about in February, and I've been saying this about Patrick for a couple of years, I think he's surpassed Tom in one regard, in the sense that he is the greatest comeback quarterback in the history of the game. I think that the numbers scream it. Like, it's not even close. Brady was as clutch as they came. Patrick's in a different ballpark. But it's so funny, man. It's not that Tyreek isn't great, that Lamar isn't great, that McCaffrey isn't great. They're all awesome. They're all 3 future Hall of Famers. I think McCaffrey's going to get there. Tyreek's definitely going to get there, especially when you consider the fact that he has a Super Bowl ring with Mahomes. And Lamar Jackson has 2 league MVPs. Every quarterback who's won 2 or more league MVPs is in the Hall of Fame. Lamar's going to get there. It's the fact that, again, the polling was conducted at the end of last season. That context does matter. But it was also matters when the polling was released. And listen, we talk about, I've talked often when it comes to presidential elections, I really don't buy into polling. I simply don't. I think we don't get the context behind the polling, who was polled, what the question was for the poll. It's I know it's hard to gauge anyway, so the polls is all we can, base it off of. We don't know until election day. We just don't. So in that regard, this polling is flawed, but what does matter now is it's out now. It's out there for the whole world to consume, and this didn't come. It's different if it came from fans. It's different if it came from coaches. It's different if it came from the media. All of which, certainly if it came from the media or from coaches, I think it would add a certain level of fuel to Patrick's tank that may not have necessarily been there before. Oh, my friends, it's the fact that it was his peers. He's like, yeah, Patrick, you're really good. Matter of fact, you're a top 5. You're not even the best quarterback. You're not even the best quarterback in the National Football League. That's Lamar. For the record, this is not the first time that the players have said this. If you look back at the 2020 poll, before the 2020 season, top 100 players, they have Mahomes the third best quarterback in the league. Not behind Brady and Rodgers, behind Lamar and Russ. Now, Russ was a different player than he is now, obviously, so that matters. But Mahomes at that point had won a league MVP and won a Super Bowl MVP and was fresh off of his first Super Bowl MVP award. And they said, no, Lamar's better than you. No, Russell Wilson's better than you. You are, sound familiar, the 4th best player in the National Football League. And remember, Patrick, there was film of this in a game against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. It was a Monday nighter in Baltimore. The Chiefs cruised to a win against the Ravens. And there was a play after Mahomes threw a touchdown pass. And the cameras for ESPN caught him going, 1, 2, 3, 4. He remembered. Just like Tom Brady remembered being the 199th pick. Just like all the great athletes use some form of motivation, be it real or imagined. I mean, remember The Last Dance? They're showing Michael Jordan literally just making up stuff that people said about him or allegedly said about him that they actually didn't, just to fuel him. That's what all the great athletes do. Mahomes is certainly in that pantheon of greatness. And listen, if there were any doubts about, I'm not saying this means the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. It's a long NFL season, and I'm a month away from making my predictions, as is everybody else. But it is, if there was any doubts about if the Chiefs go on to not make the Super Bowl or lose the Super Bowl, whatever the case may be, if they don't come away with another Lombardi trophy, it won't because of complacency. You just added a whole bit of a tank full of gas to Patrick Mahomes, to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm telling you, players really messed up big time. Again, I get this is toward the end of the season, but as I talked about a couple weeks ago when John Harbaugh said, "Hey, Lamar could become the GOAT," it's like, Coach Harbaugh, love you, love Lamar Jackson. Even as a Steelers fan, Lamar's phenomenal. That is a ridiculous statement to make. It is equally ridiculous to say Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and Tyreek Hill, who, used to play with Mahomes, are better than Patrick. So essentially what the players are telling you, on the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs, Mahomes wasn't the best player on his own offense. Okay. I'm telling you just the players, you done. What's the Morgan Freeman? Was it Morgan Freeman? This is when so-and-so knew he blanked up. There'll be a lot of moments like that this year with the Kansas City Chiefs and other players in the National Football League, particularly when they play the San Francisco 49ers, particularly when they play the Baltimore Ravens. Do they play Miami this year? I know for a fact they play San Francisco and Baltimore because Baltimore first place team, same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they play the entire AFC North for the record. The Kansas City, look at their schedule this year. Do they play the Dolphins? They do not play the Miami Dolphins. So, unfortunately, we will not get the best player in the league, Tyreek Hill. Congrats on the restructured deal, though. Shout out to Tyreek. And the Chiefs will not play them, unfortunately. The best player in the league, Tyreek Hill, against the 4th best player in the league, Patrick Mahomes, at least according to the players. Listen, these lists are flawed every year, but honestly, my biggest takeaway beyond Mahomes just having a whole different level of motivation coming into this year with the chance to become the first team in the Super Bowl era to three-peat. My biggest takeaway beyond that is, I guess I and the rest of NFL fan bases out there and NFL media can say we're better at ranking players than the media, than the players. Yikes. The list in of itself, Aaron Rodgers made the list. Listen, if it's based off of last season, Aaron shouldn't be on the list. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is one of the 100 best players in the league, I think. He's probably still in that ballpark. But if it's just based on last season, we have 4 snaps. If we're talking in totality, different story. But I'll tell you what. I mean, Joe Burrow was ranked really low on the list. Jalen Hurts was ranked way too high. He was like top 15 player in the league. That was too high. This is something else. Mahomes is the 4th best player in the league. Okay. Players really messed up. Again, I get the polling was done last season. I get that. That was a big-time mistake by the National Football League players. And I think a lot of the contenders in the AFC are going to pay dearly for it. Or who knows, maybe whoever comes out of the NFC as well, assuming Kansas City gets to yet another Super Bowl. Transition to the Olympics. So right now, as we say here today, patriotism, I'm not going to lie, is running very high and carving it up live because of the simple fact that if you look at the total medal count, France has 46, China has 53, and the good old red, white, and blue United States of America has 78 total medals. Now, unfortunately, looking at the medal count here on ESPN, unfortunately, we trail China by only 1, but we do trail them right now in gold medals. So hopefully that count can tick up as we sit here today. But listen, Katie Ledecky has done her thing. The Team USA men's squad, talk about them in just a second, about 10 minutes. They're going to get another gold medal. The Team USA women's basketball team, they're going to win gold medal. Just wish we'd have put better basketball teams on the 3-on-3. What the heck? Like, what are we doing? But in terms of gymnastics and really the face of Team USA sports headed to the Olympic Games, you could say it's LeBron James, who was the flag bearer, Coco Gauff as well, who had a disappointing exit, obviously, in women's tennis. Simone Biles, most decorated U.S. gymnast of all time. So we could show you what Simone Biles does. Matter of fact, let's not do that just yet. Because I remember as recently as 3 years ago, the discussion around Simone Biles was markedly different than it is now. In the sense that Simone, because of what she described, what other gymnasts call the twisties, which is essentially when you lose track of where you are midair doing a gymnastics routine. You become disillusioned, whatever the case would be. A gymnast would be far better at describing that than I would be. But she had to pull out of the majority of the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo for that reason. And, she was crushed for it. I remember vividly, you had people like Piers Morgan. You had others talking about how this is weak. She's weak. She's unpatriotic. She doesn't have the mental toughness to deal with adversity. Oh, my goodness. Was that ridiculous? We could show you now Simone Biles' resume. It's pretty good. She's an 11-time Olympic medalist. She's a 7-time Olympic gold medalist. And she's a 30-time world championship medalist. And you can see right there, since winning her first national title way back in 2013, Biles has gone undefeated in all-around competition in every single meet that she has competed in. And I was looking at her accomplishments today. I was looking at Simone Biles' Wikipedia page, seeing what she brought to the table in terms of her accomplishments. And I was looking at that. There was this one category in Wikipedia. It's very, very fascinating, okay? It's labeled eponymous skills. Eponymous skills. Talks about her special moves, okay? The Biles 6.0. The Biles 2 6.4. The Biles H. The Biles G. And the Biles 2J. Now, I know absolutely nothing about what any of that means. It sounds really good. She has at least 5 moves named after her. She's pretty good. Let this be a lesson not only to athletes as it pertains to taking care of your mental health. And I think that stigma, I've talked about it on my show, I think that stigma has dissipated as time has gone on. I can remember way back in 2018, people like DeMar DeRozan in the NBA and Kevin Love talking about mental health. Kevin Love literally had a nervous breakdown. I think it was a nervous breakdown during a game. It was a panic attack. He had a panic attack during a game, had to go to the locker room to get it situated. Michael Phelps has talked about mental health. So has Serena Williams. Dak Prescott, famously 4 years ago, talked about his mental health. There's been a lot of athletes who have opened up about the internal struggles that they deal with. Let this also be a lesson to the media when it comes to covering athletes. This does not mean you can't be hard or critical of athletes. Frankly, you should be, because you're not doing your job as the media if you're not doing that. If Patrick Mahomes, you heard the last segment, you know how I feel about the guy. He's awesome. if Patrick, first 3 or 4 games of the season is bad. I don't see that happening, but let's just say in a make-believe universe, Patrick Mahomes is just terrible. He's throwing a bunch of picks. He's inaccurate. He seems to be unraveling on the sideline. I'm going to criticize him. And so are fans. And so are media, as they should. That's the name of the game. If a player or an athlete performs poorly, they should be talked about like they perform poorly. But when an athlete pulls out because of mental health purposes, or deals with openly talks about his or her mental health issues, we're gonna crush them and act like, oh, that they would have never gotten this, they're not patriotic. They don't have mental toughness. Folks, Simone Biles does not become the greatest gymnast ever if she doesn't have mental toughness. Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, Dak Prescott, Serena Williams, Michael Phelps do not get to where they are without intense mental toughness. Yes, they have pure raw ability as you could possibly imagine, but they also got to have a certain level of intestinal fortitude to get to the point where they are. So when an athlete of the level of Simone Biles pulls out of many of the events of the Tokyo Olympics because just not feeling right, I'm going to take her word for it. And the fact of the matter is this: we need to take mental health, we need to take mental injuries, so to speak, the same as we take physical injuries. If Simone Biles had twisted her like Lionel Messi suffered a nasty ankle injury not long before the Olympics, had to pull out. Nobody's judging Lionel Messi. His ankle looks like a dang football. It was nasty. The same should 100% be the case when we talk about athletes like a Simone Biles pulling out of the Olympics a few years ago because of mental block, the twisties, as some gymnasts call it. And for the record, Simone plays a sport or competes in a sport where if something goes wrong, you could get paralyzed or, God forbid, worse. So do not compete unless you feel absolutely there. Listen, people deal with adversity. Athletes deal with adversity. Everybody deals with adversity. But I think we need to get to a point, and I feel like we're starting to get there. We're starting to approach that line of taking mental health with the same amount of seriousness that we do physical health or whatever the case may be. And so kudos to Simone Biles for sticking to her gut a few years ago, coming back this year and freaking killing it. Because guess what? That's who she is. That's Simone Biles. And so it's been cool to watch her. I hope this isn't her last Olympics. I know she's 27 years old. That's, from what I've heard, kind of old for a gymnast. But she is Simone Biles. Listen, he is LeBron James. LeBron should not be doing what he's doing at 40 years old almost. Simone, in theory, probably shouldn't be doing in 4 years what she potentially could be doing at age 31 at the Olympics in America, in Los Angeles. Hope she's able to do it. If not, unbelievable Olympic career. Should be commended for it, and should be commended for the fact that she listened to her body. She listened to what it was telling her. I've had a few years ago, and I hope to get him on the show again. I had Dr. John Deloney, who's a mental health expert. Has talked about this, has written some great books over the years about it. And he's talked about how anxiety, how different aspects of mental health are alarms. They are your body telling you telling yourself something is not right and you need to address it. Just like if your ankle hurts, if your knee hurts, your arm hurts, your body's telling you something is not right with said body parts. And if your mind is telling you something's not right, there's a mental block that you cannot shake or you cannot get over. Something's up and you need to address it as soon as possible. Simone did. Simone continues to, as anybody, all of us, dealing with our mental health the way that we need to. Major kudos to her. She's a true Olympian. She's a legend. Again, I listed some of the moves there. I know little to nothing about gymnastics. It sounds really, really impressive. Her accolades speak for themselves. 30-time world champion medalist, 11-time Olympic medalist, and a 7-time Olympic gold medalist. Simone Biles, one American to another. Tip of the cap. Tip of the cap. One of our greatest Olympians in the history of this great country. Let's see. My man Ryan Flowers gave a shout out to Ryan earlier in the show. My man. He says, I believe she's retiring. She is ready for the next chapter in her life. I think that's on the table. I've read some articles talking about how she's, not that she's been thinking about it, but that she had her last event today. Very well could be the final Olympic one of her career. Again, 27, from what I've heard, is old for a gymnast. So and it's a very physically taxing sport. If you watch them, I watch the men's gymnast, the women's gymnast. it's like, holy cow, this looks like I'm taking a lot out of you in terms of your joints. To physically taxing games. Simone got hurt earlier in the Olympics, had an ankle injury. And so, listen, if this is it, kudos. Unbelievable run. And again, she, and like Ryan said, it's remarkable. He said it's very old. 27 is very old for a gymnast, and it's remarkable what she was able to do this Olympics. Hey, kudos. And listen, kudos for anybody. And I think most reasonable people understood why she was pulling out. Like the idea, she hates America. She's unpatriotic because she's dealing with her mental health, and it just so happens to be during the Olympics. Come on. Listen, if there's any American athlete, if you had to put the 5 American athletes we should be most proud of, she's like toward the top of that list. So kudos to her. Again, she may retire pretty soon. If she does, major kudos. Ryan says, the gymnast from Brazil who won gold today, it's remarkable what she was able to do after 2 knee surgeries. That is remarkable. 2 knee surgeries, the gymnast from Brazil able to pull that off. She won gold. I know Simone won silver. Was it Suni Lee, or was it another one of our American gymnasts? Was it Childs? I forget which one it was. Won bronze. But yeah, our Team USA, they across the board and swearing. Katie Ledecky, holy cow! I mean, listen, I've called her the female Michael Phelps. She won. I think it was the 1,000 meter relay by 17 seconds. So she is crushing it at the Olympics right now. I assume that this was Ledecky's 3rd Olympics. I assume that her first one was Rio in 2016. No. 2012 in London, she was 15 years old, winning gold medals at the Olympics. Now she's doing the same. And listen, she is, again, she's the female Michael Phelps. Yeah, what do they call? They call Phelps the human fish. We need to call Phelps the male fish and her the female fish. I mean, it's unbelievable what she's doing out there in the pool. So kudos to her. And like I said, our Olympics our Team USA Olympic teams are absolutely crushing it. We're crushing it in terms of total medals. We're just 1 behind China for gold medals, at least last I checked on ESPN. So hopefully we can take that lead. And listen, the Olympics we're in the last week of the Olympics. So hopefully we can go into Saturday and Sunday with the most. Hey, that's the goal. That's what we do, Team USA. And like Ryan said, Ledecky is a legend as well. No question about it. Briefly, because I'm going to stay in the Olympics and move to Team USA men's basketball, because I think they're going to roll to the gold medal. Not doing a segment on it, but I did. I did want to dedicate a few minutes to this because I do think it's important. So there was obviously controversy in the Olympics a few days ago. Iman Khalif, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's an Algerian professional boxer, and she knocked out another woman during one of their events, and the woman pulled out, and there was reports then that Iman Khalif had failed the gender test. And so they've got to, oh my gosh, is this person transgender? What's going on? And very quickly we got the information. Nope, she's a woman. She can have periods. She can carry a child. She's a biological woman. It's just her genetics don't look the same as any other woman would. Believe it or not, and I really haven't touched on the transgender thing, the transgender issue much at all in the show, because frankly, I think it's a can of worms. I don't find it particularly. I don't think you get to a point where either side are even remotely close, so I completely stay out of it. In this case, what bothered me the most, and what still bothers me the most about this entire situation, is the fact that we get news, people come to their assumption on it. Nothing wrong with that. We all do, myself included. But even when the facts come out pretty swiftly, like, no, she is absolutely a woman. And by the way, the woman that she beat came out and apologized today. My bad, right? It's the fact that even today, I've checked Twitter, checked social media, and listen, I get Elon's app is the cesspool of hate. I get that. But people are still rolling with the narrative based on a lie. This is a biological woman by definition. She is. Iman Khalif is a woman. And what bothers me the most about this, and it applies to any form of hate towards any person or people group, is that people predetermine who they're going to hate ahead of time, so that if any negative information, be it true or false, be it absolutely true or completely made up, as in the case with this situation. People don't care about the facts. Listen, Ben Shapiro says, and I disagree with Ben Shapiro often, but he's 100% right on this. Facts don't care about your feelings. That's a woman. That is a biological female, Iman Khalif, who, by the way, competed in 2021. I think came in like 9th. Like she wasn't even that great. So, like, again, if she were born a man, man, that's not great, because listen, obviously men are just biologically bigger, stronger, faster. So you would think if someone were a guy, they would do better in the 9th. But that's maybe I'm crazy. So I just found that entire situation to be upset. I feel bad for the poor woman. She didn't ask for any of this. And so, and again, the woman who pulled out apologized to her today, as she should. And I think she's owed an apology by anybody who, despite the facts coming out now, she's a woman, that people are still clinging to a full-blown lie that she's transgender, and she's not. She's objectively not. So just wanted to give a take on that, because I just hate that. I hate that was the narrative went to, oh, okay, so she's cheating. No, she's not cheating. I understand that this has been a controversial topic in other sports, swimming in particular, but this does not apply to that. It simply doesn't. And so I read something that she called for the bullying to stop. I really, really hope that this isn't something that follows her, because I've seen this happen with athletes, with celebrities. Forget even people that are well known. That you can make a false statement about a person. They cannot even be famous. And whether it's true or not, it could follow them for the rest of their life, and it is taxing. It takes a toll on you. And so I feel terrible for her. Terrible. So there you go. And there you go. Ryan. Yeah, she's a woman. It's just society. People are quick to have a hot take. Listen, and I know that's what Twitter was made for. I get it. And again, Elon's, and I've been vocal about this, Elon's blatant mismanagement of that app has given said people, clickbait artists, a greater platform than they had initially. They're incentivized for it. But yeah, like Ryan summed it up, the Italian boxer just sucked. Yeah, she did. She did. Nothing against her personally, but she got it handed to her and came up with a totally made up excuse. And so listen, I'm okay. Look, not only okay with strong opinions, I encourage them, just as long as it's not to the detriment of a person. Again, I just talked about what happened with Simone Biles, and just the nonsense, that the garbage that was spewed about her a few years ago. So to see her come back and do what she did is awesome to watch, and I imagine quite validating for her. Not that she needed to prove she was great, but maybe to some she did. But there you go. And listen, Ryan's right. It's a rare thing for a female to have XY chromosomes. It is. And she had, like when Ryan's saying here, she had a high level of testosterone. No question about it. Again, sometimes genetics are just weird. Human beings, believe it or not, did not come out of a box all looking the same. That's just not how, it's not how we're designed. It's not how it works. And so, and that's kind of the beauty of humanity, as we all are different. We all have different, some people are born with disabilities, be it physical or psychological. Some people are just born differently and come out differently. And so, but again, we see it with, not to go too deep in this, but we see it with racism. We see it with anti-Semitism, homophobia, sexism, misogyny. Like we see it. If there's anything negative towards a people group or even towards a particular person, whether it's true or false, people will run with it. People will have their preconceived notions about any person or people group, and whether it's BS or not, they'll run with it, and it's really a shame. So I just want to touch on that briefly, because I hated the hate that this woman had to deal with, because she didn't ask for any of it. All right, let's transition now to Team USA men's basketball. So they rolled, shocker. They got the W on Saturday against Puerto Rico. Anthony Edwards led the team with 26. Team USA won that game, by the way, 104-83. They're going to play a quarterfinal game tomorrow in the knockout stage against Brazil. So Team USA is not going to be challenged whatsoever. I thought that France potentially could give us problems just because of their size. Wemby has been great throughout the Olympics. Rudy Gobert, for his offensive limitations and limitations in the NBA, that he can't camp out in the paint, that when you do go small and play 5 out, Rudy Gobert is completely exposed and should not have 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Anywho's it, I thought France could be a potential challenger to Team USA. Yeah, France got the doors blown off them by Germany. And so you have that. And Germany's a really good team. That Team USA beat, by the way, and didn't even play that well in the exhibition games. So Team USA is not going to roll, and here's why. So LeBron's been consistent. I think he's probably the best player in Team USA. Kevin Durant's been consistent. Anthony Davis has been consistent. And that's Bam Adebayo, you could argue to a degree, has been. That's kind of it. Steph Curry has the lowest shooting percentage. That's my man. I think Steph's going to have one explosion at some point in these Olympics. But Steph has not shot the ball well at all in the Olympics. Joel Embiid has gone at times. He was great the other night, but the first 2 games, first game he got worked by Jokic, and the second game didn't play a minute. Anthony Edwards was amazing on Saturday, but it's kind of been up and down. This is the first Olympics. You understand that from a guy like Anthony Edwards. By and large, Devin Booker, up and down, kind of a mixed bag what you're getting from Book. Some good shooting nights, some bad shooting nights. But this is an Olympic team for Team USA that I think is playing their B+ to A- game right now. And they're rolling. Serbia may medal. Serbia with Nikola Jokic may medal. They may get bronze. It was light work for Team USA. Light work. Kevin Durant didn't miss a shot. LeBron was great. So it was, Embiid was bad, by the way, in that game, and Steph didn't play well because of foul trouble. So it's watching Team USA doing what they're doing right now. There's been a big debate. Who's better, them or the Dream Team? I think that's a better conversation to have once this run is over, once they do what they're going to do and get gold over the course of this week, in terms of the roster. But I think what does need to be taken into account and taken into context is the fact that Team USA back in 1992 was not only the best team, but the other squads around the world simply didn't have the roster to even remotely compete with Team USA because basketball hadn't grown around the world in 1992 the way it has in 2024. So and by the way, that's not the 92 Dream Team's fault. They did what they were supposed to do and roll everybody and win gold. It's the first time NBA players, by the way, at that time were allowed to participate in the Olympics. So again, and Team USA has been built and grown the course of the last 32 years. But it should be taken into account that the best player in the world, I believe, is Jokic, plays for Serbia. So they do have to go through that. Giannis in Greece, they got to go through that. Wemby, got to go through France. So because of how much basketball has grown, it's a good thing Slovenia didn't make it. Not that they would have been great, but Luka Doncic would have been a hassle to defend in the Olympics. So watching what they're doing right now, again, I'm watching these games. They're playing well. I'm not going to act like they're just dogging it out there, but Steph has not gotten a shot going all. I think he's shooting like 26% or something, either from 3 or from the field. Embiid has gone from, at times, okay, like he was against Puerto Rico, to borderline unplayable against Serbia and literally unplayable. Kerr didn't put him on the floor against South Sudan. Booker up and down. Drew Holiday's been hurt. Derek White's going to give you what he can give you. Tatum hasn't been great. So I feel like Team USA is playing their B+ game. And it's not even a contest. And so, listen, they're going to smoke Brazil tomorrow. I'm not sure they play directly after that because I know, if I can pull this up here, I do know that France will compete against Canada. That'll be a good game because Canada's got a nice squad, so does France. Australia plays Serbia, and Germany plays Greece. So, listen, there are some fun matchups in here. Team USA, number 1 seed in the knockout stage. Obviously, Brazil, the last team in. They will... they'll cruise over Brazil. Who plays for Brazil that's in the NBA? Is there a Hernan Gomez in there? Is there somebody like that? Other than that, I can't think of it. But listen, Leandro Barbosa, his playing days are long over. And Brazilian Blur won a championship with my Warriors, but I don't see Team USA being challenged at all over the course of this Olympics. Because especially, something else too, and I just saw this alert on my phone from Charles Barkley talking about how Embiid's out of shape and whatnot. And again, there's a part of you, if you're an American, if you're rooting for Team USA, obviously, that wishes Embiid was with France and Jaylen Brown was with Team USA, because there was a lot of controversy about Jaylen Brown not making it, and there was some Nike stuff in there. Jaylen Brown's not with Nike. And so, I don't know. I don't feel like Team USA is playing their A-plus level, and they're rolling. And by the way, can I say this too? Oh, Steve Kerr, these rotations, how could you not bring Kevin Durant off the bench and put him into the starting lineup? Oh, I don't know, because Katie's been rolling off the bench, and the second unit for Team USA has been phenomenal. Maybe that's why. I'll tell you, the criticism of Kerr in the last couple of years from Gen Z Warriors fans and at times from NBA fans across the board has been really confusing. I mean, look at the Golden State Warriors roster a season ago. It was good. I mean, Steph's still Steph. Draymond, when Draymond's available at least. Everybody else has some good players. I really like Pajemski and Kuminga. Think they've got great potential. Can they help the Warriors win now? Not sure about that. Trace Jackson-Davis is good. He'll develop. He's good. But when people act like, oh, Kerr's the reason the Warriors didn't make the playoffs last year. Huh? If nothing else, the Draymond suspensions. Draymond's my guy. But the Draymond suspensions were killer for the Warriors last season. And the criticism of Kerr with the rosters. Why didn't he play Tatum? I don't know. They blew out Serbia. It seemed to work. Why did he play Embiid? They blew out South Sudan. Seems sort of relevant. They haven't really, I mean, they'll have a couple of weird spurts in the first quarter where they don't look great. They had one spurt early in the fourth quarter against Serbia where they let their foot off the gas pedal, but that was just a matter of intensity, not game planning. And more than anything, again, a job of an NBA coach, then we'll move on to the Steelers. The primary job of an NBA coach, and Kerr himself has talked about this. Listen, he got the greatest education a coach can possibly get. He played for Phil Jackson, and he played for Greg Popovich, arguably the two greatest coaches ever. Red Auerbach certainly would have a case to go along with him in that top three. 10% of the NBA is X's and O's. These guys know how to play. They've been playing their whole lives. They know how to play the game of basketball. 90% of it is managing personalities. It is. There's different dudes on the team. Football, baseball, a lot of sports, the X's, they matter in the NBA. I mean, just watch the Lakers last year. I didn't know what they were running half the time. I think LeBron would sometimes he dribble the ball at the floor like, hey, what are we doing? And Darvin Ham just hands his pockets. Figure it out, LeBron. So coaching does matter in terms of X's and O's, but in terms of managing personalities, again, I love Draymond Green. That's my guy, but he's not always an easy guy to coach, to get along with. And him and Kerr are still on good terms after 10 years together. Does that happen with the Detroit Pistons? Does it happen with the Milwaukee Bucks? Does that throw out any team? The Cavs? Throw out any team in the NBA. The Lakers, the Clippers. So I've always said Kerr. I mean, Team USA, Grant Hill could have chosen any coach Team USA, and he chose Steve Kerr. I'm going to go with Grant Williams basketball analysis more than I will, some Gen Z Warriors fan. Just say it. It matters. Who, by the way, still wears their Jordan Poole jerseys. And full disclosure, I do have a Jordan Poole jersey in my closet, but safe to say I don't wear that thing. All right, moving on to my Steelers. There's been a lot of discussion lately about the quarterback situation, who's going to win the job, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Both moves, by the way, I said in the offseason were good for my Steelers. I enjoyed it. I appreciate the fact that after having arguably the worst quarterback room in football last year, yet somehow managing just by virtue of Mike Tomlining, and the Steelers being great in late game situations, they were able to win 10 games and make the playoffs. So I appreciate the fact that Tomlin, who last year I had some concerns, does he care more about the no losing season thing? Is he married to 2007 style football, which is like run game and defense, and quarterback just hits the guy, who's open, and like ignoring the fact that you need a playmaker at the quarterback position in today's NFL. I was growing a little concerned about that, but you had Russell Wilson. He's got his flaws, but he's way better than anybody else in Pittsburgh a year ago. And the same can be said about Justin Fields, who is a playmaker. And Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator for the Steelers, by the way, that was a move I really liked. Arthur Smith was not a good head coach in Atlanta. He was a tremendous offensive coordinator in Tennessee. Guy had folks thinking Ryan Tannehill was like a fringe top 10 quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's a free agent today. So Arthur Smith was able to do that with Tennessee. But Arthur Smith was talking about Justin Fields. And keep in mind, Russell Wilson has a bad ankle right now. So he's still trying to get that to full health, trying to get back out there on the practice field with the first team offense. Meanwhile, Justin Fields, Steelers coaches have been pretty impressed by him. And Arthur Smith said that he gives us more flexibility in terms of what we can call. And I think Fields is going to win this job. And I talked about last week, as a Steelers fan, I prefer Russ get it because of the simple fact that Russ will help the Steelers, and there's a whole plan in this. Russell will help the Steelers be good, maybe even make the playoffs again, but they're not a Super Bowl contender. I love the Steelers defense. Frankly, I love the roster and Mike Tomlin. They just don't have that guy quarterback to get them to the next level. They'll be good. But there's a very good chance Dak Prescott's going to be in the market, and newsflash, Dak's a little bit better than Russell Wilson. Matter of fact, a lot better. Justin Fields is also a significantly lesser player today than Dak Prescott is. But there's a chance, I've been fearful of this, that the Steelers, just based off pure upside, could delude themselves into thinking, well, if we can develop Justin, he can be okay. But free agents like Dak, like literally, it will be unprecedented, a quarterback of Dak Prescott's caliber to be free agent. Don't miss me with the Kirk Cousins stuff. Check Kirk Cousins' resume when he was a free agent in 2017. Check Dak's resume in next year. Night and day difference. But I think Justin's going to win the job because for a couple of reasons. Number one, players, as you saw in the top 100 list where Mahomes was criminally rated number 4, notice who they put above him. Lightning bolt in Christian McCaffrey. Can do everything with the ball. Versatile. Amazing. Best running back in the league. Great runner in Lamar Jackson. He's gotten better at passing over the years. I've defended him like crazy in that. But Lamar, we know his primary gift and skill is running the football. He's an electric Action Jackson, as they call him. He's fun to watch. And Tyreek Hill, I don't know, his nickname's a cheetah. He can run pretty fast. Very aesthetically pleasing players. Not the Mahomes, is it? But last year, Mahomes couldn't be aesthetically pleasing because guys in Kansas City either couldn't separate or couldn't catch. So he had to kind of take what the defense gave him, like 10, 11 play drives. The Chiefs are hoping, obviously, that'll be different this year. But Justin Fields can give that big playability. If you just go on YouTube and watch Justin Fields highlights, you're like, holy cow, this guy's awesome. The problem is he's not terribly accurate. His decision-making can be hit and miss depending on the game. And I'm not sure how much better he's gotten now, between now and when he entered the league. Sure, better to a degree. 2022 was probably his best statistical year, but the Bears won 3 games that season. So his numbers were good, but they didn't really impact winning all that much. And so just on a pure aesthetic standpoint, I think he's going to win over the locker room. I think he's going to therefore win over Arthur Smith. And plus the fact Russell comes into the Steelers organization with some baggage. Given how the end of Seattle, how that played out, given how Denver played out, there's an ugly breakup between him and Sean Payton. And so that's going to be something I think is going to hang as a little bit of a dark cloud over Russell Wilson moving forward in Pittsburgh. Not to say he won't start any games. I think both Russell and Fields are going to start games this year for Pittsburgh. What I'm hoping, and this sounds oxymoronic as a fan, but it's where my allegiance lies, is hoping the Steelers can get to a championship level of football, is the fact that I know for a fact Russell Wilson cannot get them there. Maybe he'll shock me and the Steelers win 11 games or something, but I don't see them going past the first round of the playoffs. I simply don't. Quarterback play in the AFC is too good. And Fields, who I don't think is a better player today than Russell, for all his criticisms, we could put up the stats right here, by the way. Russell was a better quarterback than Fields last year. He just was. 9 more touchdowns, 1 fewer pick, a better completion percentage, more total yards over the course of the season, better record, way better pass rating, the whole bit. Like Russell was a better quarterback than Justin Fields a year ago, as you see right there. But Fields gives the upside, which I think the coaches and the players are going to buy into more. And so, despite the fact that I think starting Russ will be better so that other teams who may want Justin Fields based off upside don't have a ton of film other than some special packages for him, you move on for Russ, sign Dak, you sign Justin Fields in free agency as your backup, and either Justin Fields is your backup, yay, that's awesome, or you trade him somewhere else and get something for him. And get more, buy low, sell high. Is what I thought the Cowboys would do. Trey Lance doesn't look like they're going to be able to do that, given the reports coming out of Cowboys training camp. But I think the Steelers, they would be better served going with that strategy. But if they roll with Fields, I think it will be simply because of, he's just been out there in the field more, so he can get more of a rhythm with the first-team offense. And also the fact he's fun to watch. When Justin breaks off one of these long 30, 40-yard runs, it's exciting to watch on the television. You're pumping your fist. Justin Fields is a great fantasy football guy. So my guess is he gets the job week 1. Does he keep it? I have my doubts. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. But again, my prediction is that both Russell and Justin will start games this year, and the Steelers will win about 9, 10 maybe games this season, and hopefully go out and get Dak Prescott in free agency. That would be awesome. I'm not going to lie to you. By the way, in the comments, Jeff is in the comments. He's a 49ers guy. He says, don't know if you really talked about it at all, but Mahomes being at number 4 is not interesting. Not the craziest thing in the world. He didn't play great in the regular season and won the Super Bowl with only 1 touchdown in regulation. His touchdown in regulation also came off a fumble by Ray McLeod that had Mahomes right at the 10-yard line, and his touchdown pass to win the Super Bowl was an easy pass that me and you could have made. I don't know. He had to kind of sidearm that to get it to it was a great call by Andy Reid, by the way, the last play of the Super Bowl, the one is for Kansas City, but he had to kind of, he's moving to his right. He had to throw that at not an awkward angle, but an angle where you got to get some oomph on the football. Jeff says McCaffrey should have been number 1, no question. So listen, I'm going to do my top 10 list on Wednesday because I always do this every time the players do their top 100 list. I come out with my top 10 list. Bryce's best 10 on Wednesday. Be sure to stay tuned for that. McCaffrey very well maybe at number 2 for them. I think the guy's awesome. The offensive player of the year, I think, is clearly the driving force of the San Francisco offense. You can check the numbers. I can go back and look maybe before Wednesday's show, but the numbers when McCaffrey's on San Francisco as opposed to off, I think I saw today, like since the trade, they win like 81% of their games when McCaffrey's there. When he's not there, they're like under 500. So it's a massive difference. You talk about every season the most valuable player, and the quarterback position holds a disproportionate level of value as every other position. Left tackle certainly is a case, but no one's going to vote left tackle MVP. McCaffrey among non-quarterbacks is probably the most valuable player in the league. I mean, my guy TJ Watt's in there, Myles Garrett's in there, Tyreek Hill to a certain degree. But if we're going to talk about the most valuable non-quarterback, McCaffrey's probably the guy. But that said, again, while you're here, Jeff, I could go and pull up the graphic here because Tyreek, according to the players, the best player in the league. Mahomes is kind of amazing. First in pass yards, first in touchdowns, 6th in completion percentage, 5th in passer rating, 4th in record. He won the league MVP the first year without Tyreek. He's undefeated in the playoffs, 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. And to your earlier point, Jeff, about the 1 touchdown regulation, listen, we can nitpick a lot of Brady Super Bowls. Listen, we can talk about the fact that Joe Burrow's 1 touchdown in his Super Bowl came off of a blatant offensive pass interference that wasn't called on T. Higgins. So listen, we can go back and nitpick those things to death. But the fact of the matter is San Francisco's defense was stacked, and outside of Travis Kelce, that Kansas City offense was not good. It wasn't. That was an all Mahomes. And by the way, still threw for over 300 yards. I mean, you're still talking about an offense that had a kid in Rashee Rice. Who else they had? They had the guy, Justin Watson was on the team a year ago. Who else was on the squad for the Kansas City Chiefs? I'm forgetting. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who was so valuable, the Packers let go, and then the Chiefs let go. So, I mean, by the way, Sky Moore didn't play. Kadarius Toney was the drop master. So that was not a good Kansas City offense. And the fact that he got it to a Super Bowl, by the way, the run that they went on to go to the Super Bowl, the teams they beat was, I said back in February, it was the most impressive run to a championship I've ever seen in my life to a Super Bowl. Not in terms of the individual game against San Francisco, but in terms of the run in totality. It's phenomenal. You go on the road to beat a red hot, you beat Miami. You're supposed to beat Miami. You beat a red hot Buffalo team in a game where most everybody picked the Bills. A lot of folks were like, hey, the rubber match, Mahomes, Allen. Maybe Allen's better than Mahomes. No, he's not. Mahomes vastly outplayed him in that game. In the AFC title game, you go on the road to Baltimore, the best or second best roster in the league, beat the Ravens, shut down that offense. And then the Super Bowl, you face, I think at that time, the best roster in the league, the Niners. And Mahomes was phenomenal. He had the 1 interception early in the third quarter. Other than that, he was great. He was fantastic in that game. And those 2 drives, by the way, that fourth quarter drive to tie the game and send to overtime, go back and watch that thing. That was phenomenal. And Jeff's right about this. Look at how horrible the Panthers have been without CMC the last 2 years. They've been the worst team in the league ever since he left. 100%. Like when people, I hear folks when they defend Brock Purdy against folks like me who say, like, guys, McCaffrey's the driving force of the 49ers offense. Well, I mean, look how many games the Panthers won with Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, look how many, to your point, Jeff, look how many games they've won without him. I mean, well, they won 2 games a year ago? Come on now. By the way, most of the 2021 and early 2022 struggles for McCaffrey, the fact he wasn't healthy. Like, to his credit, he's been last year and a half, knock on wood, that continues. He's been healthy for San Francisco and has been awesome. I mean, he had a crazy streak that I think got broken midseason of consecutive games with a touchdown. I think he might have broke the record. So, pretty wild. Pretty wild. Last segment, because I didn't want to touch on this, because I touched on the subject a year ago with different information in different context. So Skip Bayless left FS1 on Friday, and he had previously told the New York Post, I don't know, a month ago, that he was going to be leaving FS1 in August. Sure enough, on Friday's show, they finished the show, and Skip tweets immediately after the show, "This is it. This is my last day in Undisputed, last day after 8 years on FS1. He's going to pursue future opportunities." So, first things first, a year ago, I talked about this subject when the infamous Skip and Shannon split occurred. Shannon went to First Take. Skip obviously staying with FS1 and recreating Undisputed into what he was hoping would be, because it was more of a panel-like show rather than just a one-on-one debate show, more kind of like First Take and what Stephen A's turned First Take into. Safe to say it didn't work at all. The show was... The pacing wasn't great. Skip was, I mean, the first show was a disaster. They had like 4 people on, and Skip was trying to get a word in. They cleaned it up a little bit. It was more Skip and Keyshawn. Michael Irvin or Richard Sherman would be on during the football season. Paul Pierce, with his god-awful takes, would be on during the NBA season. They'd have a Rachel Nichols. A Lil Wayne would come on Fridays. But just the dynamic of the show flatly did not work. And frankly, Shannon brought, just like Stephen A did, brought the best out of Skip. They put Skip in a combat first mode, and that's when, bad take or not, is when he's at his best. And Skip simply did, let's be honest, did not appreciate and recognize him. We said it a year ago, and it certainly rings true today, how important Shannon Sharpe is, and frankly, how much of a superstar that Shannon Sharpe is in the sports media. I mean, the knockout punch in that argument happened at the very beginning of this year with the Cat Williams interview. Like that kind of ended the who won the Skip Shannon divorce. I don't know, the guy with I think the most watched interview in YouTube history. I'm going to say that guy won. Undisputed ratings went to the tank. First Take's ratings skyrocketed. And again, as a guy who watched Undisputed a lot when Skip and Shannon were together, I came in with an open mind. I wasn't going to act like Skip was just this bum and whatnot. I was going to give Undisputed a shot, the new Undisputed. It wasn't a good show. It wasn't a good show because it wasn't terribly entertaining. Not that necessarily the takes were great or bad, or that's subjective. It's a matter of agree or disagree. Skip's fatal flaw, and the thing that did him in and did Undisputed in. Undisputed, I think, is going to continue. We'll see what they make it into. Skip's fatal flaw was the fact that he did not evolve. He did not evolve into what the sports media landscape is turning into, in the sense that Skip did not change his approach to presenting topics, to debating. He kind of stuck to the same old talking points. Even if Skip is, who's been a Tom Brady guy forever, if they're arguing Mahomes versus Brady, Skip can give Brady the edge, which obviously right now Brady has. We'll see if that changes in the next few years, but Brady certainly has the edge over Mahomes as we sit here today in 2024. But Skip can argue Tom Brady without going to the same old talking points. Skip can play the villain role, which he's done pretty successfully over the course of his career on First Take and on Undisputed. Skip can play the villain role, but have a bit of likability to him. One of my favorite people in sports media is Nick Wright. I think Nick Wright plays the villain role masterfully. There are fan bases that really hate Nick Wright, fan bases that love him. That's something I try to aspire to be. But to have a little bit of creativity, have some fun with the show. It's the very reason that I think Fox is going to move First Things First to the morning spot, as I think they should. I think that show can give First Take a run for their money in terms of the ratings. With Undisputed in the shape that it was in, First Take kind of had an easy W day after day after day throughout the course of the football season and the basketball playoffs. But listen, I wish Skip the best. The fact of the matter is this: Skip, the thing that he should get a lot of credit for is the fact that he invented a new line of how we talk about sports, positively or negatively. I personally view it positively. Others may not view it the same, in the sense that debate shows like First Take don't happen without Skip. Debate shows like Undisputed, later First Things First, other shows, they don't happen without Skip Bayless. And so he deserves credit for that. They call him the Godfather of debate. I have no issue with that. Stephen A. does not become the superstar he becomes without Skip. Shannon Sharpe certainly does not become the giant superstar, even post-football career, that he was a great player on the field. I'd argue Shannon Sharpe's more notable and has had a greater career in his media life, as opposed to the dominance he put on display with the Denver Broncos and the Baltimore Ravens back in the day. And Skip was able to vouch for Shannon Sharpe, to say, hey, I'm not doing Undisputed unless Shannon Sharpe is my co-host. But once the media landscape shifted, once it became very clear that Shannon was the driving force behind people watching Undisputed, I think clearly that bothered Skip. And he simply, listen, it's funny. I think Skip has made a mistake with Shannon that the Cowboys are currently making with Dak, is misjudging the market. The Cowboys are totally misjudging the market on Dak. They have a little offseason. They did back in 2020 and 2021. And Skip did with Shannon Sharpe. He forced him out. Like Shannon has been very classy about it. Stephen A. has been vocal about the fact that Shannon was forced out at FS1. He was essentially fired, mostly for the, because of the issues that he and Skip had. And so, listen, Skip created a great line of television media in sports. Deserves credit for that. And I think that should be the primary source of his legacy. But when your reputation becomes more of a, okay, I'm literally going to play the villain role just because, not because I really have a whole lot of substance to it, you're just not going to be able to have the sustainability that other people who do play the villain role, like a Nick Wright, have played masterfully over the years, which is, you are going to be how people like him approach it. Nick and Colin Cowherd does this to a certain degree. Again, something that I try to aspire to do is, you may really hate me for this take, but I'm going to back it up with data and evidence that are mostly irrefutable. Skip didn't really do that. It was just, I don't like this guy, screw him. That's he's done that with LeBron for going on 22 years now. And at times you would watch Undisputed, like, he's literally just hating just to hate on the guy. Like, there's no real substance behind it. I mean, the Steph Curry stuff has been exhausting. Well, the 2016 finals, the fact that he recruited Kevin Durant, Steph Curry is therefore disqualified from being a top 10 player in the history of the game. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. More players should have been like Steph and recruited another superstar to their franchise. Maybe they'd have more rings on their finger. It's a thought. It's an idea. Should be considered. Patrick Brown. Skip's legacy cemented. I'm excited for his next ventures. Undisputed will move into a new era. Hopefully they'll have it right by football season. I don't know what Undisputed is going to do. My guess is FS1 will keep Colin's show where it's been for 8 years, or 9 years actually, in that noon Eastern spot. First Things First should be the first show on FS1. I'm sorry. They need to put that show. I remember talking to folks during this football season and being like, the fact that Undisputed gets 2.5 hours and First Things First gets 1.5 is a crime. It's an the ratings say it. The engagement says it. It's an objectively better show. And I'd argue, because a lot of these shows are about chemistry, not just in sports, but a political show. It's about chemistry. How do you play off each other? And Undisputed, they didn't play off each other very well after Shannon left. And First Things First, I'd argue, take Inside the NBA out of the way, because that's an unattainable standard that I don't think anybody's ever going to reach, is Inside the NBA. In terms of chemistry, I don't think anybody comes close to First Things First with Nick Wright, Kevin Wildes, Chris Broussard. I'm telling you, that show needs to move to 9:30 to noon. That show needs to compete with First Take. And frankly, I'm not saying that they beat First Take in terms of ratings. They could put a much bigger dent in First Take than Undisputed did. I'll tell you that much. Evolution, evolving with the times, changing your game. That's why I've not criticized, but commended Nick Saban for evolving. Nick Saban, He specialized in defense and running game. Fortunately for him, that's the way college football was when he arrived at Alabama. It was about defense and it was about running game with Mark Ingram and with Trent Richardson and with Derrick Henry and great Heisman-winning running backs. And then around like 2015, 16-ish, it turned into, having a running game is great. Yeah, it's good if your defense isn't run by Alex Grinch at Oklahoma or at USC, but you need a quarterback. You need a Baker Mayfield. You need a Kyler Murray. You need a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow. You need those guys. And Nick Saban was like, okay, I'm going to pivot like that. I'm now going to go to Jalen Hurts. I'm going to go to Tua Tagovailoa. Then I'm going to go to Mac Jones. Then I'm going to go to Bryce Young. I'm going to evolve with the game. Skip has not evolved to the current sports media mold. That was what did him in. And I read a report recently that said that it's highly likely that a television network is not going to hire Skip. Listen, there's one thing that, and I've learned this in college, going to media classes, I have learned it observing from afar. Man, a network will have a very long leash with you, regardless of how good or bad your show is, as long as they get the ratings. The day the Undisputed's ratings basically went in the tank, they didn't care anymore. They're like, okay, listen, Skip, you've been the face of our network along with Colin Cowherd. You're not pulling in the numbers that Colin is, that Nick is, or that Emmanuel Acho and Joy Taylor are on Speak. We got to move you. And I think Skip, essentially, I'm sure they probably came to Skip. My guess is, this is not reporting, this is just speculation. I'm sure they probably went to Skip, said, hey, we'll reduce your contract. Undisputed is not going to be the morning show. And Skip's like, well, I don't want that, so I'm going to leave. Respect him. I have no problem with that. But the game's kind of passed him by. And it's sad to watch. I've watched Skip for a long time, as long as I can remember as a sports fan. But he didn't evolve. And that's what hurt Skip in the end. Let's see what we got. And I'll get to your list here in just a second, Jeff, because I would like to discuss it before we get out of here. Patrick says, first things first, we'll have to compete against First Take. That buzzsaw will have to take it another notch. Yeah, I'm listening. You're not, I'll tell you this for sure. And if they do, because First Things First has not been moved to the morning slot, which my guess is it should, and I think it will. I've even heard reports that Danny Parkins could get hired by FS1. And let me just say on the outset, Danny Parkins is as talented a human being as there is in sports media. I would be beyond thrilled if he gets an opportunity at FS1 or ESPN or whoever wants to hire him. Think he'll crush it. He's great in Chicago. But assuming, let's just say, Patrick, that First Things First does get moved to the morning spot, I'll tell you this, the ratings discrepancy is not going to be in 2024 what it was in 2023. I'll tell you that much. First Take, just by virtue of being ESPN, just by virtue of being Stephen A. Smith's show, will probably beat First Things First. Oh, but it'll be close. It'll be close. Especially in football season. That'll be fun to watch. I did get the pleasure, though, about 4 years ago, summer of 2020, to briefly meet with Chris Broussard. It was on a Zoom call. As nice of a dude as there is in the world. Like, great guy, man of faith. He and I share the same faith. So kudos to him in that regard. And so, yeah, so definitely an easy group of guys to root for in that show. Their chemistry's off the charts. And First Things First is just getting better. So it's my favorite. It's personally, outside of Inside the NBA, it's my favorite sports show on TV. There's some other great ones out there, by the way, but that's my favorite. Bryson, this is from Jeff. Bryson, I got to give you my top 10 players based off of last year's list. Okay, but let's see what you got. So Jeff said based off of the playoffs, last year with the playoffs being a big factor, he's got, holy cow, he's got McCaffrey, Tyreek, TJ Watt. He's still got Mahomes at 4. Chris Jones, Trent Williams, Max Crosby, Josh Allen, Myles Garrett, Lamar. I think Lamar's a little low on your list. That's not a terrible list, Jeff. And by the way, Jeff says Bosa was his first one out. Nick Bosa at 11 was incredible in the NFC Championship game. 2 sacks, one-on-one against Penei Sewell, and awesome in the Super Bowl. Not his best regular season. Yeah, I think Bosa will bounce back this season. I don't hate where you have Tyreek. I love it to give my guy TJ Watt some love. TJ Watt single-handedly won the Steelers some big games this past season. Trent Williams at 6, I think it's a great spot to put him. Max Crosby, crazy underrated just because he doesn't play in that many big games because the Raiders aren't very good. Josh is a little high for me. I'd have him just a smidgen outside the top 10. Again, I don't want to give away my top 10 list because I'm going to reveal that on Wednesday. But again, I think off of not even just value, because McCaffrey is a strong case there, but just in terms of raw ability, leadership, clutch gene, ridiculous statistical outputs. I just don't know how you can make a case against Mahomes. And that's not even that's not shade at McCaffrey. I love McCaffrey. I love Lamar Jackson. Tyreek's amazing. The guy is putting together an unprecedented run right now. Like the greatest not individual necessarily, but the greatest team run post Cowboys dynasty was the Patriots in the early 2000s. But A, they didn't reach as many conference championship games as the Chiefs have so far. And B, with respect to the GOAT, Tom Brady, he was not then what Mahomes is now. And early in the Patriots dynasty. So there you go. Final comment, and then we'll get out of here. Patrick says, I'd like to see Max Kellerman back. Man was pretty smart. ESPN pushed him out the back door. Love him. I love Max too, Patrick. I think he's phenomenal. I did see his old co-host, Marcellus Wiley, who's got a podcast, was talking about how Max is probably coming back pretty soon somewhere. I'd love to see it. Max, from what I've heard, it sounds like he kind of took the year off, spent time with his family, just kind of took a year off from the sports media business. Whenever he does come back, can't wait. I think the guy's awesome. I think First Take was really good with him and Stephen A. The ratings may not bear it out, and that's likely why Max was pushed out. But I think Max is as talented as any human being in sports media. We know what he does in regards to boxing, but his basketball takes are questionable at times, but his football takes tend to be pretty good, minus Tom Brady falling off a cliff, minus that. Yeah, I think he's really smart. He's a dang good rapper. I'll say that much. My gosh, that dude has bars. But yeah, I would love to see Max Kellerman as well, Patrick. I think the guy's great. Jeff says, yeah, TJ Watt is way better than Myles Garrett. I don't understand why anybody even debates. It's a joke that Myles won DPOY over TJ this year. I agree with you, Jeff. And by the way, I hold Myles Garrett in as high regard as anybody. I've compared him, not in terms of performance, but physically. He's the closest thing I've seen to Reggie White, just in terms of he will literally make amazing left and right tackles look like high schoolers, like just embarrass them with the size and his raw strength. That said, literally to your point, Jeff, across the board, TJ Watt was better, and I even have a list on my phone, and then I swear this will be the end of the show. TJ Watt beat Myles Garrett in these categories last season. Tackles, tackle for losses, sacks, fumble recoveries, interceptions, pass defended, quarterback hits, touchdowns. By the way, they were tied in forced fumbles. And Garrett's awesome. He's awesome. Top 10 player, clearly. TJ's a better player today. Like, I'm with you. I'm shocked. Maybe it's because Myles just looks like not that TJ isn't a great athlete, but Myles looks like his body was sculpted by Greek, sculptus. The guy's incredible, but no, he's not as good as TJ Watt. All right, that is all the time here for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. I said Twitter again. I got to get used to not saying that because for some reason Elon won't let non-verified account live stream on there, which is ridiculous. See if he changes it. Who knows? But right now we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. So if you don't watch Carving It Up on YouTube, on the Grid's YouTube channel or my YouTube channel, you can check it out on Facebook. Carving It Up podcast. It's easy to find. We live stream there just like we do on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. And also be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We're on the road, hopefully, to getting to 5,000 subscribers. So very, very excited about that. Listen, the football season is fast approaching. It's August 5th. So we got, I think, exactly a month until the NFL season begins between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Cannot wait for that. College football's going to start in 3.5 weeks. Man, oh man. As much fun as I have doing the show now, during football season, it's a whole different ballgame. Cannot wait. Especially with college football 2025 or 25 to get us all fired up for it. Come on now. Doesn't get better than that. Also, if you have subscribed, thank you so much. It means a lot. Please tell your friends about it, family about it, everybody know about it, except for your sleeping cat. It's just not a good idea. Shout out to Nealon. If you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button and become part of the Carving It Up family. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Also, check out my man Patrick. He was in the comments today. Check out his articles. Particularly, they've been Olympics-centric. A lot of historical stuff, a lot of current stuff. He's been writing some great pieces for the Grid website, so be sure to check that stuff out. And check out our other content creators on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast. All right, I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean. Right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us American citizens on a daily basis. And no matter what anybody on either side of the aisle tries to tell you, gaslights you on, oh, it's not a problem. Oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of complex, nuanced solutions to it, especially with this being an election year. If your leader is not intent on solving solving this issue, regardless of where they lean, vote them out. Or vote against them. So there you go. All right, I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Bryson's best 10 players in the NFL. We're gonna have a reaction to Team USA against Brazil. I imagine we'll roll them because that's what Team USA does. And gosh darn it, let's catch up to China and get some more gold medals than they do. Because we're already gonna get the total medal count. Let's get the gold medal count this is icing on the cake and show once again the greatest country in the world, the USA, in the Olympics. All right, see y'all on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Like I said, dominance at the Olympics, baby. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.